Hi, everybody. Good morning. I'm Dr. Yaprak Onat, and I'm with CIRCA. CIRCA stands for Connecticut Institute for Resilience and Climate Adaptation. So it has all the keywords that you heard this morning, and I'm going to explain to you like what are some of the tools that you can use for your projects, because our institute has been specifically, you understand from the name that it's Connecticut focused. So we are trying to understand what are the climate change related issues that our state is having and what kind of adaptation solutions that we can provide to you. My talk is going to be showing you guys more about the tools that you can use to identify specific climate change problems or the regions that are suffering from different climate change issues. And I want this to be a little bit more active, so that's why I would like you to have like some kind of a tool with you. I'm going to use Slido. If you have a smartphone, or from your browsers, you can just go to this QR code. Boom, let's do it together. I'm gonna ask you a couple questions during the meeting too, or you can just like type it from your app as well. And this is here for whenever you have a question during my talk and you're shy or you don't wanna just interrupt the way that the presentation and then the workshop is going, you can just type it over there and then we'll come back to the questions. You can upvote the questions. I just wanna show you like how it works. I'm gonna say hello. Sent. Hi. Okay, so your questions will be like accumulating over there. So whenever something comes to your mind and you're just like don't want to interrupt the presentation or don't want to ask it at the moment, then you can just write it over there. So just keep that in mind. Hey, I got a thumbs up. Thank you. So, all right. So we can just like talk about it now. I mentioned to you that we are going to talk about a little bit about the tools, but I generally mention a keyword here. It says like vulnerability assessment or vulnerability. That's what, yes?
What's the password for it? I didn't get it.
Oh, of course, sorry. Yeah, let's go back to it. Password is XF1XPK. You're welcome. Anyone else is having any issues? Yes.
I don't have.
That's okay. We'll have like a Q&A part at the end too.
Sorry?
We are going to have a question answer part at the end as well.
There's nothing that I need to get into right now.
No. This is just for like fun part. Like if you don't do it, that's okay. It's just because we are living in like the Gen Z era. I assume that you guys will be like more in tech and have fun with it. All right, coming back here. I wanted to clarify our conversation and so that we can be in the same level. Vulnerability assessment. So what is making you vulnerable? Think about this for a second. You don't have to answer it. When you feel vulnerable, maybe you're outside without your coat. Do you feel vulnerable? Yes. So in terms of climate change, then we are going to think about it. Which areas are going to be vulnerable? And how we are going to assess that, meaning identify that. Okay, so the tools that you are seeing on the screen, they are going to help us visualize which regions are going to suffer the most or potentially suffer the most. Okay, I'm going to mention them all one by one, but since I mentioned the vulnerability, all right, here's your first question. So what comes to your mind when we discuss vulnerability relating to climate change issues? Animals, yes. Animals can be vulnerable to climate change because they are related to the ecosystem. Developing countries, yes, like the previous talk mentioned that. Our ocean, glaciers, plants, erosion, wildlife, yeah. Polar bears. Polar bears, yes, definitely. Not related to Connecticut per se, but yes. People in poverty, less fortunate countries, exactly. Trees. Salt marsh sparrows, cool. Agriculture. Exactly, we are a very agriculture-based state as well. Maples, plants, heavy rains. That's true, like you've been watching news from like what California has been suffering, yeah. I think that's kind of affecting estuaries. Yes, we have a lot of estuaries. Hurricanes. All the words that you are typing right now or mentioning, and if you don't have a device to type it and just want to say it, that's also fine. You can see a word cloud here. All of you focusing on like the glaciers, animals, humans, floods, salt marshes, trees. What are the common, do you see a common pattern, right? It's related to humans, it's related to ecology. These are all kind of things that makes you vulnerable. We are humans, are vulnerable. Our ecosystem is vulnerable. And you are right on point, like when we are talking about climate change, all these perspectives that we come into mind. So in the vulnerability assessment, that why we are doing this, is first of all, we need to understand what's going on in the region. As an individual, it's hard to grasp all the issues that's having. Your neighborhood, for example, may have a lot of issues. You guys had like a pandemic happen to you too. There was a lot of vulnerability you went under. But you may not know if you don't access, don't talk, don't investigate what is going on in the region. If you are a person who is more interested in social sciences, you may not know like what the biologist is having their struggles in the climate change issues. So the reason that we are doing a vulnerability assessment is so that we can identify the areas that are going through an increased risk of climate change issues, and they can be community and ecological resilience that they need to do, so that we can evaluate what kind of sources that area has to cope with that climate change issues, so that we can plan for it. We can prioritize the actions that is needed. Prioritization is important because you're going to have like a fund, right, or a priority list. So if something is, there's a burning house, and you have just like an okay building, which one that you want to fix it first? A burning fire, right? So that's what the vulnerability assessment is going to help us to see, like which one I need to prioritize, which regions, and strategically locate the limited sources, because you're gonna have like a fund and you need to distribute it. You wish that you want to distribute it to everybody, but unfortunately, this is not going to be the issue. You're going to have limited funds, so you need to choose which one is the burning, house versus which one is okay, or maybe they can get a support from they can fix it up themselves, So that's what we are trying to do here with our tools, to see these kind of potentially projects through all these lenses. Okay, so first thing that we have is a sea level rise viewer. I'm going to go to the website. Oh my God, I have so many tabs open. Okay, so not this one. Give me a second. That's the PDF. That's Resilient Connecticut. I think this is the one, yes. So our website is, oh my God, I hate that Zoom is blocking. Okay, bear with me, guys. So this is, do you see it? No, you don't see it because it's not over there. Of course you can't see it. All right, let me expand my screen. Duplicate. Oh, hello. Okay. This is not the one that I wanted to show, but give me a second. All right. CIRCA.ucon.edu is our website. It's our main branch website. You can see a lot of information over here. But what I wanted to show you guys the sea level rise viewer first. Go to viewer. You can follow around, or you can just like follow me what I'm doing here. Just want to show you as a tool like what you're seeing. So this model shows all the Connecticut coastlines that we have, and it's an approximate, it's an estimate, but a very close estimate because we scientifically calculated all these things. This is a viewer, so you'll be able to see different flood scenarios here. What do they mean? Mean high water, that is just like a tidal range. So if you know in tidal range, like sometimes you have a high water, you go to shore, and then sometimes the water is just like backed off a lot. So that's what you are seeing right now. But the hurricanes that you typed a couple seconds ago are here. These are the scenarios that you're going to see. 10-year, 30-year, 100-year, 500-year. These are just like the scenarios. That doesn't mean that it's going to happen every 500 years. There is a chance that every hurricane can happen in any given year. We can have a hurricane right tomorrow, you know. So there is a chance of having that. But the numbers are, the way that the numbers are increasing, that's just actually to help the planners. That's not how the possibility works. But the numbers are increasing, the less likely that you're going to have it. So a 10-year flood generally happens with a 10% chance. A 100-year flood happens a 1% chance. So you have a 1% chance of having that flood happening to you. The higher the number that you're going to see, a higher the impact that you're going to have on your shoreline. And you're just gonna need to wait a little bit to load. And these 20 inches of SLR means sea level rise. So Connecticut is expecting to have, by 2050, up to 20 inches of sea level rise. So you can see on your shorelines that how much that kind of a change is happening. So you can look in the flooded areas in your region. And load this. This is not the one that I want to spend the most time on because you're going to have the most feedback in the other tools that we have. But I just wanted to show you like what it looks like. All right, going back to the presentation. Am I going back to the presentation? Yes. Okay, so another tool that we have that you're going to see on our website, and we'll show that to you, is zones of shared risk. So the idea is that in your neighborhood, you're having similar kind of a problems. Like, yes, individually maybe different, but if your neighborhood is having low access to, you know, an evacuation route, your neighborhood's having the same problem. If your neighborhood is close to a region that's going to flood a lot, your neighborhood is having the same problem. So we have maps generated for that. So what you are seeing right now is the New Haven area. And then we divide the New Haven area into small pockets for saying that, okay, West River coastal area is having the similar kind of issues, or versus like this commercial area of Long Wharf is having the similar kind of issues, versus this area is having, Fairhaven is having the similar kind of issues. So we have those tools also. But you don't have to examine them in too deep or to understand it too deep. I'm just mentioning that to you right now. So another tool that we have is a social vulnerability tool. So we think about the vulnerability in terms of climate change, but social vulnerability is human-specific climate change. So we don't need to think about the animals or ecology right now. We just think about like what are some of the things that's making you socially vulnerable. We specifically made that in the lens of a climate change here. So commonly, if you have a different kind of a socioeconomic status, or if you're working and you have restricted income, or you don't have access to reliable transportation. Those are kind of things that's making your life hard, right? So that's kind of how you can think about the social vulnerability. The age, elderly people, and very young kids are suffering more from kind of problems that you can have. So these are just like the examples. You don't have to read it, but commonly that we find that if you have these kind of issues, that you are more vulnerable. And now we mapped that out for the New Haven and Fairfield counties. But these are just like the glimpses that I want you to do. If you haven't understood anything up till now, it's fine. You don't need to. I'm going to show you a tool that's going to answer your questions for your project. And it's going to make your life easier. And that's going to be called the Climate Change Vulnerability Index tool. This tool is going to be a map. You'll be able to zoom out to the region. You're going to see all the problems that I mentioned to you. If there's an ecological problem, if there's a human problem, if they have a restricted access to evacuation routes, if they have, not limited income, it's going to show all of them to you. So you don't have to understand even anything, but just like you can this tool, you can do a rapid assessment, see like what's going on. You can prioritize the areas, because in a map, how many of you guys are using map in daily life? Google Maps counts. Yeah, right? Yeah. Google Maps counts. So
Ways, yeah.
Waze counts. You don't need to be expert to understand this map, because you're going to see a pattern, and then you'll be able to see the pattern. And it's robust, so it's going to be identified for the two. What we have right now is 2 counties. It's standardized, and you're going to identify the most critical issues, and you're going to see like what we need to do for the planning. All right. So this is kind of what I meant. Just think about this picture. What do you see? Red and green. What do you think? Is red areas are having the best of their life? No, right? Okay, so that's kind of the map that you're going to see. So you don't really need to be an expert in map reading in this case. That's what we actually prepared for eventually for the whole state, we prepared it. But right now you're going to work more in, like the 2 counties have the better tools right now. But the idea is that all of the things that you are having in your life, you have streets, Google Maps, you have your home is occupying a space. The elevation, like you have hills and rivers and everything, you have a land usage, you have disposable income, or you have like a poverty layers. They are all converted into something called GIS. GIS is Geographic Information System. So basically, all the real world, I converted into 2D, a map. Combine all of them, squeeze them in a hamburger, and bam, you have a map right now. And this map is going to show you from very low to very high vulnerable areas. And they are little pixels in there. And those little pixels are 10-acre areas. And that's what you're going to have this index. So it's a lot of information. It's not like 4 information here. It's a lot of information that we put into this. So we then divided into buckets. So what the buckets are is there are 3 terms that I'm going to teach you right now. Adaptive capacity, sensitivity, and exposure. And just to understand what they are the opposite sides of like this equation. So this is sensitivity and exposure is going to give you the impact that you're having. What is the highest impact that your whole area is having? Versus this one is you're going to be ability to cope. I'm going to give a little bit of pause for just a second. And tell you guys all these three terms. Okay, so exposure. The degree of stress that particular asset is going through under climate change variability. What does that mean? So you are exposed to heat in a hot sunny day, right, when you're walking. It's climate related, it's weather related issue. You have some physical structures in there. You guys mentioned that in the word cloud erosion. It's a nature-based event that's impacting you. That's going to be your exposure. And that's what we try to put that into buckets, because it's a big hamburger, but made with lots of ingredients. We wanted to divide them into meat sources, vegetable sources, bread sources, right? This is going to be our exposure sensitivity and adaptive capacity. That's how to make it work. Let's see some examples what that means. These are the layers that we are using. So there's like flood-related events that you are having and heat-related events. And the heat-related events are not going to have the same exposure indicators. Indicators meaning like what is the contributing factor in there. So for flood-related issues, you can have sea level rise, like how I showed you on the sea level rise viewer, or storm or hurricanes. But on the heat-related issue, you have temperature, that makes more sense. And what are the other physical factors in that nature that's contributing to that? Like in flood, you have erosion. If you have a low elevation, that you are flooded more. So it's over there. What about, like, do you guys see that, you may see that in Texas in the news too, but do you think that it is flood, like the flood water, like it rained a lot, and then that flood water needs to go somewhere to the drainage, right? Do you think that it can drain easily in a city center, like an area, or like a parking lot, versus here in that pasture? Which one? In a more concrete environment, there's not really more absorption, right? So that is also mapped. So all these kind of things, you don't have to learn all of them, but are in there. Another factor that, all right, so we talked about like the buns, and now we are going the other ingredients like vegetables here. Sensitivity. So let's say there is no climate change issue. There is no weather-related issue at all. You are still vulnerable, right? You still have issues going on. The animals that you mentioned in the word cloud, they're still vulnerable if you do something to them. So there are some built ecological and socioeconomic factors that is going to make you vulnerable, sensitive to those issues. And what could that be? They're, again, divided into flood and heat-related stuff, and they're mostly the similar thing. If your air quality is bad, that's bad. But if somebody has asthma issues, without the air quality being bad, it's still bad for them. That's kind of what it means. If you have a flooding event happened and you have to move out, but you have money to cover for your hotel, while your house is draining and things like that, that's good. But even without that, you have struggled to bring bread to your home. Without the climate change, that's making you more sensitive. Those are the issues that are there. So they are divided into social, built, and ecological, or social and built environment. Social is related to humans. Build is, for example, in your house, if you don't have an AC, that is in a hot heat wave day, that's going to make you vulnerable. Or if you have like critical facilities, all right, so critical facilities. There are some critical infrastructures that we think that are very, very important to save. I mean, your home is very important too, but your home is impacting you specifically. If you have a wastewater treatment plant fail, that's going to impact the whole area, right? So that's why they are critical facilities. A hospital it's going to impact the whole neighborhood if it's going to fail. So those are there. Roads, streets are there. A specific, like if you have a critical ecological environment, that's there too. So much talking. I want to take a break. Now, let's do some little quiz-ish. Not a real quiz, but I talked about all these sensitive things. And here are the examples that you have. What do you think are the causing sensitivity? That can be a sensitivity indicator. You can choose multiple options. There's not one right, and there's not one wrong. Poverty, yes, is meaning. Because you are sensitive if you are in a poverty, no matter what's happening to you. All right, so I see that disposable income. Do you guys know what disposable is? It's just like if you have like extra money to spend around. So if you have extra money to spend around and splurge, does that really make you sensitive to things? Nah. So I put there just to fool you. Elderly people are yes, because we have senior centers and everything dedicated to them. They have like health issues, so already there. Unemployment is yes, that goes like similar with the poverty too. Flood protection systems. What can be a flood protection system? A dam can be a flood protection system, right? It is there to save you from related flood stuff. So is that really making you sensitive if something is protecting you? No, So I put that also to fool you. Roads are less popular here, but roads can make you sensitive. If you're living close to a highway with all that noise and then the pollution and everything is coming to you, yes. And they are concrete structures, so they are not really draining any water. They are also heating very fast, so they are actually making you sensitive too. And if you don't have access to your roads, then it's also problematic as well. But thank you so much for joining this. This was fun. And the last one from our hamburger is adaptive capacity. So adaptation is what you are going to work on, right? What does the adaptation mean in that sense? You want to bounce back from any kind of an impact. You have an impact that's happening to you. You can cope with that to a degree. It's never going to be the way that it was, but you can repair things. And that's what the adaptive capacity is. And to be honest, without like humans are interacting so much or interfering so much with the nature has its own bouncing back capacity. And that's what it is about too. And humans as well. So there's going to be ecological, there's going to be built structures there that are going to do that, and there's going to be socioeconomically that the bouncing back is going to happen. All right, some of the examples are disposable income. And if you own your house versus you're renting it, some of the built ones, if you're living close to a hospital or a shelter, that's going to be a more adaptive environment for you. Or if you have ecologically more like the marsh areas, because marsh areas are actually holding the water in, that's good. Social-wise, like with people with have like more health insurance, that's also they can bounce, like they can use that income. So those are some of the contributors. You can use this QR code to go to the viewer. Now we're going to see the maps. If not, I'm going to show you in a bit like where you're going from your laptop to, so you don't have to. Just to say a couple things again, wrap it up everything that we talked about. There are some social factors your built environment, and ecological factors. That they are all the indicators. They are all impacting your life, right? And what we did them, we put them in a map environment, divide them into our hamburger, exposure, sensitivity, and adaptive capacity. And then in this gridded system, that we rank them, ranking meaning that this red one is like more exposed right now versus this guy, right? So we did that, and you have a vulnerability map. We have multiple vulnerability maps. So this one is actually the combination of, all right, after that break. So it can be, this is like the combination of it. It's like both the heat and both the flood related issues. So I'm gonna give you guys an example and show you the tools that from all the towns that you'll be able to see with the reports that which one is like highly in terms of heat vulnerable versus flood vulnerable. You'll be able to see that. You'll be able to see like which bucket is like more impacting from the exposure sensitivity and adaptive capacity from each regions. And at the end, if you don't want to just do it by yourself from the map viewer, for the 63 regions that we identified in New Haven and Fairfield counties, we have actually maps presented like more explanatory like that. That's right now is showing the New Haven Long Wharf area. What is their issue? If they're highly flood vulnerable, highly heat vulnerable, highly social vulnerable, and their specific issues are written in individual maps. We have that for different regions, so you have it available. All right, so let's go to website and play with things. But before that, I want to ask couples. I want to see if we have any questions so far. Oh, no. Are the questions gone? No. Okay. So our climate struggles in third world countries widely regarded as a product of solely first world activity. Oh, that's a very good question. No. There is a range, so the developing countries, third world countries are also contributing, but the scale is that for the first world countries is just like more contributing than compared to the third world countries, so that's kind of the issues. But the problem is that, so you're contributing less and then you're taking the worst impact, so that's the problem with the third world countries. People's dying, yes. Oop. Okay, so those are the only questions seems like that we have so far. Drinking water is an issue. All right, so let's go play with the viewer. Up. Give me like 1 second. Duplicate. All right. Yes, wonderful. All right, so the QR code that I showed you are actually going to our climate change vulnerability index viewer. So in the first page, introduction page, you can just like learn about like what I talked here in a summary way. If you forget about how to use this viewer, then you can come here to how to use. But I mentioned that there are flood-related issues and heat-related issues. So we prepared two maps. You're going to see the flood-related one and heat-related one, and you can also see the combined version. And if you go this little hamburger thing, then you can also check for the social vulnerability one that I showed you, and this other opportunity areas as well. All right, so let's see how we are going to use this one. You can zoom into an area. Right now, this map is showing this like on top of every layer. It's showing all these layers that's checked out. It's showing flood vulnerability, flood sensitivity, flood exposure, flood adaptive capacity. So all these three ingredients are making the hamburger, which is the vulnerability, like which is our full thing. If you just want to see the general picture, this is the layer that you need to focus on. Let me turn off the railroads. It's giving me up. Okay. So this is kind of the map that you want to see if you just want to see the vulnerability. You can see like which ones are darker, which ones are lighter color. And if you want to see like what it means in terms of scale, it's going from darker to lighter color, but only thing that you need to know is like whether it's vulnerable or not in darker color. You can go to individual layers, sensitivity is going to load on, exposure and adaptive capacity. So it is really hard to load because there's a lot of data, but just be a little bit patient. The thing that I think you are going to use it most is these tools, this graph chart tool. For example, vulnerability. You can choose a filter, define an area. I'm gonna come to here. Let's say this region. I wanna choose my option of drawing. Let's say I wanna see like what's going on in this neighborhood. Apply. And then you'll be able to see that if they're like which one is like impacting more to them. Physical exposure, real sensitivity, social, ecological, overall. You can do that for exposure sense, the other buckets. If you just want to see like what is the heat related and then the climate related issues are going on in that region. You can just do that as well with the exposure. Erosion issues like very big here in Milford area. They have a very high tidal range issues. They have a lot of impervious surfaces. Sea level rise, they're going to be impacted more. So that's kind of what you'll be able to learn it from individual. If you want to come to this infographic chart, then you'll be able to see from overall for each town. Let's say that if you're in Ansonia, what are the overall scores that you have for each region? And whether they are higher or lower compared to the other cities. So those are the main tools that I think will be helpful for your project. You can go to the heat and do the similar thing again. Let's say heat exposure. I want to draw in my area in here. What's going on over there? Not too many features. Okay, so we need to choose like smaller area. All right, so it's gonna show like there's a lot of heat emissivity issues going on, lots of impervious surfaces, climate change. So you'll be able to play with that. If you want to see like the combined version of it, then you're just going to click on the combined. And with that way, you'll be able to see that which features, like which regions are more high in the combined heat and flood impacts. And let's say that you want to come to this website without the QR code. Let's see where our website is. So we have a website called Resilient Connecticut, or if you just write resilientct.uconn.edu, that's also fine. And then you come to this website. Here, we can go to technical tools. You'll be able to see all of our other stuff, but you can go to the Climate Change Vulnerability Index and go to this main page and you can play with it. There's a fact sheet, there's presentations, there's viewers individually. So you'll be able to see that. The one that I showed you, I clicked on story map and that's where this page is going into. That is mostly it. If you want to not focus on Fairfield and New Haven counties, but the rest of the state, we have a tool developing right now too, so I can also share the link for that, but that's not going to be as elaborate as this one. So that's kind of what I want to do. And right now, then let's get some questions, and I'm just gonna walk around, and if you guys are on the website and having issues on how to use it, let's figure it out right now.